grid cartogram. So we're going to take the states, regular map. We're going to make a contiguous cartogram. Weird, right? So this is a contiguous cartogram based on population. Super ugly map, right? I don't like how that looks. I don't like what they do to Wyoming and New Mexico, but you know, that's how it goes. And then we're going to turn that into something like this, which is a little bit easier to look at, right? But it's essentially taking that information and extracting it into a hexagon layer that we're going to create. So I'm going to real quick, we're not going to have time to walk through all these steps most likely, but hopefully we can get a little bit of a start on it. And I'll at least show you here so that you can go in if you want to before the next class and play around with some of these tools. All right. So let me remind myself what I need to do. All right. So we need 2 plugins to make this work. One is the Cartogram plugin. It's the Cartogram 3 plugin. And the other is QGIS. So while I'm talking, you're welcome to install those plugins. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to use the Cartogram plugin to create a cartogram. It's a pretty simple tool, the Cartogram plugin. We're then going to create a grid of hexagons for the entire USA. We're going to use a tool called extract by location to extract only those hexagons that overlap with the United States boundary. And then we're going to use a tool called join attributes by location. And this is a tool I was telling the group in the little study room about. So I'll show you how that one works. And then I'm going to use a dissolve tool to make state-only hexagons. So apologies if I run through this quickly. I just want to make sure I show you all of this. All right, we're going to go back over here. I'm going to turn off my centroids layer. Just bring my states pop up here. Just for fun, I'll make this look a little nicer with, what did I have? I had median age. All right. So when you install the Cartogram plugin, it adds a new toolbar to your map with this little button. It allows you to compute cartogram. I'm going to click on that. And the inputs to this, it asks you what layer do you want to use. So I want to use my USA States Pop. And then what field do you want to size your cartogram based on? In our case, we want it to be sized based on population. I found it gives good results if we set our number of iterations to 15. And then I click OK. So then it kind of chugs through, does a bunch of these iterations, and it will, well, it's going very slow today. It will output a sort of average of these. And why it has to do these quote unquote iterations is that it doesn't always come up with a good solution on the first try. And you'll notice that this one is probably a little bit different from this, right? Similar, but just slightly different shapes for some of the features. All right, so this is my super ugly cartogram. God, it's hideous. But each of these states are now sized based on their population. So look at what happens to Washington, D.C., right? It's bigger than Wyoming. And you know, this is one of the cases that's been made over and over for Washington, D.C. becoming a state and adding a couple Senate seats and representation to that state is that it has a larger population than a couple of the states out there, even though it's very small geographically. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my QGIS, and once you install the plugin, you'll now have QGIS up at the top here. And I'm going to go create grid layer. I'm going to choose hexagons as my grid type. And I'm going to make this a little smaller than I did it in my example. I'm going to make these about 30,000, I think that's meters. So these hexagons are going to be 30 kilometers across. And then I want the extent of my hexagons to be the same. So the extent is sort of the distance from here to here and here to here of my cartogram for population. I'm going to save that file to, call it USA X. And then I'm going to click apply. And this creates a uniform hexagon grid across the whole country. All right, now I'm going to use my extract by location tool. And what this tool does is it takes features from my hex layer and creates a new shapefile with only those features that intersect with my cartogram. So this is going to essentially take all those hexagrams and cut out all of these hexagons because, you know, it's this big rectangle, right? I want to cut out all the hexagons that don't overlap with my cartogram. So I'll save this as USA Hex Carto or something like that. I'll click run. Ooh, there's a couple that it didn't like. Looks like it did not like Washington, D.C. there. Interesting. And I can get rid of my original hex layer now. And I'll turn that off too. So now I just have hexes in the shape of my really ugly cartogram, right? So my next step is I'm going to open my identifier and look at what's inside of these hexes. And these hexes don't have any attribute information except for just a geographic coordinate. So what I want to do is I want to pull the attribute information from my cartogram into those hexagons. Clear that selection. Why are you doing that? What just happened? Oh, that was identify, sorry. So I'm going to use a tool called spatial join, or it's join attributes by location, sorry. So what this does is it says, okay, for your input feature, which are your hexagons, look underneath those hexagons to another layer, and whatever the attributes are for that other layer, pull that into your hexagons. So I'm coming in, my input layer is my hex carto. My join layer is my cartogram population. It's a little bigger. I want to join all the fields from cartogram population over to hex carto. And join type, you have to specify that you want 1-to-1, just one hexagons filled with just information from one state. So if they're on the edge of a state, it's going to choose the state that has sort of the majority, fills the majority of that hex. So if it's right on the border of New York and Vermont, but it's mostly in New York, you're going to get attribute information from New York. All right, so I'm going to save this as USA Hex attributes. All right, so now if I open the attribute table of my hexes here, I'll notice that they have all of the attributes from my USA shapefile associated with them. So I can now color these attributes in layer styling in a graduated way, right? So I could come in and say, we want to do this based on median age and match my spectral color scheme. Kind of cool, right? So now we have hexagons with that information underneath, sort of generalized to the state. I'm gonna change my border here to make it just a, I think I made it white in my map and really, oops, really faint. Okay, so now what do you think would happen if I labeled this right now with state abbreviations? What do you think my labels would look like? Do you think I would get one label per state? No, I would get a label generated for each hexagon. So this would look awful if I were to do that. So what I instead want to do is I want to take these hexagons and I want to use a tool called dissolve. So dissolve will take what these have in common. So it'll look at all these hexagons and say, oh, these hexagons have the exact same values. So I'm going to dissolve all the boundaries inside this shape and turn it from all these hexagons into just one polygon for Florida. So I'm going to come back over here, go dissolve. Yep. Input layers, my attributes, dissolve fields. I'm just going to pick, you can really pick any one, but I'm going to pick state name. And I'm going to save this as USA X dissolve. I'm going to click run. So I now, do you all see what that did, that dissolve? So it kind of dissolved all of those tiny little hexagon boundaries based on which state they were in. So I'm going to layer style this, and I want no fill. And I think I just made like a thicker white line. Maybe I'll do a gray line or something. No, I don't like that. Around those state borders. Then that was kind of what the map in the PowerPoint looked like, right? So I've now got this cartogram. They're based on size, and then they're colored based on median age. So my last step, layer styling, I'm going to add some labels. I just wanted to show you a couple extra cool labeling things. I want to do state abbreviations. Again, I want those kind of to be placement offset, just right in the center there. And then one thing you can do, which is really nice if you have a lot of white on your map or different colors, is this buffer. If I click draw text buffer, watch what happens here. Ooh. Amity, were you asking about how to do that on the last assignment? Someone was asking about that on a previous assignment of how to add a buffer around your point. So you could make your buffers really big. So like a lot of blobs around. And what's nice about the buffers is that if you have text crossing like a line, having the buffer there makes it sort of stand out from that line. So if you're drawing a label on a river or something like that, and you put your buffered text on that, it just gives it a nice little break rather than sort of like the sort of confusing look of having lines stacked on top of lines. Okay, so the last thing I want to show you is click on this little ABC thing, and this draws callouts. So if I check that, I don't have any callouts right now, but if I come in and move any of my labels, any label that gets moved manually off of the state that it's sitting on will get a little call out line connecting it from wherever it is to the state or the feature it's connected to. So if I do that and then I come up here, you all should have like a labeling tab right up at the top, and I check this fella right here and I get a little crosshair, click on Vermont. Oh, it asked me, this doesn't really matter. You can just accept the default. I'm just going to click OK. Click on Vermont and then move that. Look what happens. Isn't that neat? So like especially for like little states, This is like a really great way of calling them out. And you see this all the time in map making, right? Especially for like the New England states, like Rhode Island and Connecticut always get the little line treatment. But in this case, we probably want to do it for Wyoming, right? Give Wyoming a little, oh, Texas.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. How did that happen? Texas, you're coming back. You don't need to call out Texas. Thought I had grabbed Wyoming. Maybe it just disappeared forever. I don't know. So it's just a nice way of calling some attention to an area using those call outs. And as a way, if you don't like the way QGIS automatically places a label, you can just move it around to suit your purposes. Yeah.
Is there a way for you to change? I was playing around with this a little bit. I was looking to see if I could change the color, or like, is that possible of the labels?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So if you come in to font, you just have to scroll down. There's like lots of stuff that you can do. So I've got red. You could also like if you wanted to do like a white font and a black buffer, you can do that to give sort of like that reverse emphasis. I think they generally look best with that white buffer, but it's a way of doing this as well. And then you obviously have all the fonts that you would usually have in your toolkit.